And welcome to a Degenerate Friday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest. Very happy to have you guys with us as we wrap up another incredible week of sports and head into the weekend, which figures to be equally fantastic and laced with all kinds of opportunities to both make and lose a hell of a lot of money. Of course, you have the Preakness on Saturday, but I now have an inclination, and I know this will not be a very popular opinion, but usually you're looking for the upset in a horse race. And because of the fact that I was able to score an interview with Umberto Rispoli, who is the jockey, finished second on journalism, dashing young Italian. If you catch that Netflix series, which is fantastic, sensational look behind the scenes, very, very favorable look behind the scenes of thoroughbred racing and what it's like to compete in the Triple Crown. The concentration, of course, is heavily on the Kentucky Derby because if you don't win that, you don't have a shot. And if you do win it, as we saw with Sovereignty, and you don't run into Preakness, there'll be no Triple Crown winner. That takes a lot of the romance out of the series. But nonetheless, if you're a degenerate gambler, you have another opportunity, maybe not to make the sensational scores that are usually in place when you're betting the Kentucky Derby. Wasn't really the case this year because I thought the exotics were soft by comparison to the win, place, and show odds that were represented in both the exacta and the trifecta. You did get a decent payoff if you had Final Gambit as the fourth horse in your superfectas. Oh, yeah, I had it. It's amazing. Post-race handicapping is always very interesting. But the three horses that we were talking about finished 1, 2, 3. Sovereignty coming out of the Florida Derby was a winner coming from behind. Had some trouble during the race, but still managed to navigate his way through the stretch. Bill Mott, being a horseman that he is, says not going to be ready to go in 2 weeks. Sparked a lot of controversy again, as it does almost every year, whether or not they need to reconfigure the time differential and space out the three races of the Triple Crown Series. The hardcore people, and I was one of them at one point. The Triple Crown is what it is, and yet you're looking at changes and evolution in all the other sports. There was no three-point stripe in basketball. You had rule changes in football favoring the offense and kickoff rule changes, all kinds of different things. They're looking at new stuff all the time. Added a lot of teams into the postseason in Major League Baseball. Is it not time for a change, as suggested by the name of the great racehorse in thoroughbred racing? And what would it hurt anything to have an extra week between the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness, so it was more realistic for Derby competitors to actually come back and run in that race. But because of my conversation with Rispoli, which you can catch on Bleacher Brothers, and Larry Coleman, who calls the races for NBC. I guess Fox now has at Belmont, so he's not the voice of the Triple Crown this year, but very astute handicapper on FanDuel TV and had a brilliant call of the Derby. They take a deep look at this, and because Rispoli was accommodating and amenable to doing the interview with some schmuck from South Florida instead of some network television outfit, I can't help but root for journalism. So that kind of recuses me from handicapping the race. But good luck with that. We have all kinds of other things happening. Headlines yesterday, the Nuggets force a Game 7. Many people anticipated that. I don't know whether or not you're going to be inclined to take the 7 and a hook that they're going to be getting on the road in that Game 7. We have in town here in South Florida tonight, where we originate the program from, the Florida Panthers going against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Carolina worked their way into the Eastern Conference Finals once again, second time in the last 3 years. And in all likelihood, facing the Florida Panthers, who have a chance to wrap up their series tonight at home. Winnipeg stayed alive and forced a Game 6 in their series against the Dallas Stars. And the who's who of the leaderboard that people were anticipating in the PGA, it's who the hell are those guys? Who that? It's a complete unknown. It's Bob Dylan time. We welcome into the show the professor here, who has action on the PGA. He always gets involved in the major tournaments. And unfortunately, our Justin Rose collaborator. I think I buried you because I gave out Justin Rose as a possibility in your honor on the show yesterday. He was 90-1 when I saw the odds. I think you had him at 75-1. But who the fuck are these people at the top of the leaderboard in the PGA?
Excellent question.
Yes. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing okay. How about yourself, Dave?
Feeling pretty good. I really enjoyed all of the action leading up to this weekend and looking very much forward to this hockey game tonight because each of those games, for the most part, has been a bloodbath. And it's become cliche to say that the Stanley Cup is the toughest of team championships to win. But I think if you watch it on balance, you would have to say yes to that. key in the NBA seems to be avoiding injuries to key players, which we may have seen. Aaron Gordon, he's coming up the court, dribbling a ball across the half court line, and Holmgren starts to pick him up just across half court late in that ball game where Denver was in control, or so it seemed. And Holmgren kind of initiates a steal. It ended up in a basket for OKC, but we saw Aaron Gordon grabbing at his hamstring, and we saw what happened with Golden State once Steph Curry was out of there. It was Sayonara City. And apparently, he did have some kind of level of severity to his hamstring in terms of injury. So I would imagine that would be a key factor in that game. I'm a big fan. When Aaron Gordon is a solid contributor, Denver is a real tough team to beat.
I'd assume that, I'm not going to put it on the Steph level, but yeah, I mean, that would be a fairly big injury. I would personally say that it's really Murray as much as anybody as the second piece who really makes Denver go.
Sure.
But yeah, Aaron Gordon is certainly a key contributor on both ends of the court for the Nuggets.
What do you make of that? I know you've been following this at least on a peripheral basis, if not indulging heavily in gambling on these games. Is OKC, the young upstart team, capable of breaking through and holding serve on their home court in a game 7, or does
I
it?
mean, they're certainly capable of it. Look, Oklahoma City came into this series with a problem in that their defensive plan was really to use Holmgren on Jokic a lot, factoring out that Jokic outweighs Holmgren by 150 pounds or whatever the hell it is, and really can just get anywhere he wants to on the floor when the big who's not actually big in pounds but in height is on him. And so we've seen Jokic's way. He's had 2 40-point games and a couple of the 30s thrown in there. But OKC has largely been tough at home. I mean, they've been tough on both places all year long. Really, the thing with OKC is the 3-point shooting, right? I mean, you pretty much can count on SGA to be effective. The efficiency is sort of the question with him. Does he get his 32 points on 20 attempts? Does he get his 32 points on 28 attempts? I mean, you could sort of count the points. It's the question of efficiency. And then they're just a team who shoots a ton of threes. I mean, literally everybody else in the lineup is shooting threes, and SGA kind of plays an unusually mid-game range. So it's a question. I mean, from what I've watched them in their losses, they're still getting the open looks. They're just not knocking them down. But really, this is a series where, except for the absolute smokeout game in Game 2, everything's gone down basically to the last minute or two. I mean, so I would expect Game 7. The likelihood is it'll be a 1 or 2 possession game with a minute and a half left, and we'll see what happens.
Sounds like an inclination to go ahead and grab the 7 and a hook with Denver.
That would be my first read. Yes, I mean obviously Gordon's injury would play a factor in that one. Again, up until 10 minutes before tip last night, everybody thought Murray was going to be out of that game with some sort of mystery illness, and I guess he had his
thing. Yeah,
he had his Michael Jordan flu game. So
he goes 4 for 5 at the start, ended up with 25 points, and as you said, he's probably the second most important piece. I mean, he is the second most important piece there, along with Jokic, who had another monster game. So that was interesting. Knicks and Celtics, we know your affinity. If you followed the professor at all on any of our various platforms, you know how much he loves not only the city of Boston, but the Boston Celtics especially.
Yes, in particular.
The only thing that could, I think, be more of an irritant to you than the Celtics prevailing would be that Ben Affleck was in the crowd and was cheering them on. But what do you make of Celtics Knicks? I implied earlier on another program we did that this is somewhat must win for the Knicks, and you took exception with that. I know they have another shot at it, but it would seem like
you're watching the Boston Celtics without Jason Tatum. I personally weren't that impressive with him with Jason Tatum. Well, I mean, no, look, I'm not trying to take away the accomplishment. They won the title last year, but they won the title in the weirdest playoff, maybe only second to LeBron being in the bubble.
Right.
Like the weirdest playoff run of all time, where literally in every series they played, the other team's best player got injured.
Right.
Jimmy Butler, I don't think he even played in the series. Then they played the Cavs, and Mitchell
Mitchell.
got hurt in like game 2 or game 3. Then they played the Pacers, and Halliburton got hurt in like game 2. And then they played the Mavericks, and Luka got hurt in, I don't know, game 2 or game 3 or whatever it was. It was a weird run. Then they come back this year. They played okay in the first round. I don't think they blew anybody's hair back. And they get in this next series, and everything has been a dogfight. So, like, you tell me, you take that Celtics team, and again, I am counting on it because I'm going to be watching the game tonight. And weirdly, like when I am watching, Derek White's like a top 100 player of all time somehow. So I'm assuming he'll have another big game tonight. But outside of that, Jaylen Brown's a nice player. He still can't go left. Yeah.
And your man Pritchard. Yeah, I mean,
So like if and Al Horford, who's what, like 57 years old at this point.
I
mean,
think Horford might be more effective as old man.
Right. I mean, I feel like if the Knicks don't get it done tonight, I'm sure they want to get it done tonight. Being on their home court, and I feel like they probably will. Although I got to tell you, as much as like all my friends who are not Heat fans are Knicks fans,
Right.
So I really want to like the Knicks, but man, that is a tough team to watch play. I mean, between Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, like they flop like a Dutch soccer team. I mean, and then Hart's not a flopper, but he's always on the floor. Like he's always and how he's not called for like 15 offensive fouls a game, I don't know, because like his offensive rebounding strategy is like literally jump on a bigger guy's back and do the, what do they call it, chicken fighting when they you hold up people in the pool. Like that's Josh Hart on every offensive rebound. Like the Knicks are really hard to watch and enjoy. So I'm having a problem with that aspect of it. But yeah, I think they'll probably get it done tonight. But if they don't, I think they'll have an excellent shot on Sunday. So, if we do get another Game 7, we'll probably get 2 pretty good ones.
Our hometown team on the ice tonight at I think it's called the Amerit Bank Center now. It's changed names a zillion times, but and to take on the Leafs, seem to have gathered all the mo in this series. They had 8 unanswered goals before Toronto got one to snap out of a 6-0 funk and make it 6-1. They did play airtight against the Panthers in the previous games before getting blown out on their home ice. What do you think? Does Florida close it out tonight?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go back.
You have the Panthers in 6?
No, that's gurgles. I have no action on it. But I wasn't that into this series because I know, like, you're playing like the Chicago Cubs of Canada. They're like the lovable losers. Everybody. But then the Hard Rock announced that Bryan Adams is coming down here for a concert, and I was like, no, that's what starts the war for me against Canada. You sent Bryan. Like, we're going to do something at the northern border. I don't care about, potential Al-Qaeda. I'm worried about Bryan Adams crossing over the border.
You'd rather they send fentanyl into the country than Bryan Adams.
Exactly. So, yeah, I definitely got into. I was like, screw that. I don't want Canada to win another cup ever. I hope slowly the teams just keep. Honestly, like Winnipeg got a new team. I hope that team ends up like Dubuque, Iowa. Like that kind of level of middle finger to the country of Canada is like, we don't even have to send your teams to a good city. Just any American town will do.
Yeah, and they stayed alive last night against the Dallas Stars, who were favored to win the Stanley Cup.
We'll send Ottawa's franchise to Terre Haute, Indiana, just to prove that we can.
You'll have Caitlin Clark singing the national anthem at a hockey game.
Exactly.
In Indiana.
So, yeah, I mean, I honestly, the way they played the last few games, I assume the Panthers are going to win because really they've just dominated the last 2.5 games or whatever it was, 2 games in a period. Whenever it was in Game 3, they sort of took things back over after they ping-ponged around a little bit and then took the game over at the end. So, yeah, I assume the Panthers are going to win, but we'll see. I mean, hopefully they'll win.
All right, your Magpies not in action in the late night. You look very
I
refreshed.
know they're not. They're not on. They weren't on the Friday morning at 5:20 a.m. game, so I didn't have to get up.
But you have been hammering Australian rules football, and as we were saying the other day when talking about your upcoming appearance, look, what difference does it make what you're betting on if you're winning? Most gamblers would still complain because they're fueled by self-sabotage. Said, I can't bet on that crap. What do you?
Me too. Look. I'm the same way. Like I feel that way about Major League Baseball. Like I can't bet on it because then I have to watch it, and like I can't deal with that.
But you are getting a thrill not only out of watching Australian rules football, but you might be the leading expert on which way to go in terms of wagering. So
Seems likely.
what are you
Me
looking at
and
this week?
Crocodile Dundee. Um, you know what? I would love to come on here and give a Magpies pick because I ride them pretty much every week,
Yeah.
and it's been paying off. But they got a very tough matchup with Adelaide. It kicks off at 11:20 tonight. Our time, that is. I don't know what time that is in Australia. I don't even know if they have
I
clocks.
I think it's 2 days from now in Australia.
Yeah, I'm not even sure they have clocks in Australia.
It's like a casino.
But yeah, they're playing Adelaide. Adelaide's very good, and the Mags are laying at 11.5. So that's just a little north of what I feel like you can do in that game. On the other hand, we got a surprisingly low line to me with West Coast and St. Kilda. St. Kilda, we've talked about them before. That they're the same squad every year. They always score well. They got a good offense, but their defense is always suspect. Well, the good news, they get to play West Coast, who is absolutely awful this year. The only winless team in the AFL to this point this year. And I believe St. Kilda's only laying like 12.5 in this spot. I assume they're going to just clobber West Coast because West Coast is awful. So don't worry about the number. They're going to cover it. They're going to cover it big. Probably win by like 30.
In the
So
immortal words of the
going
late.
with the Saints. The St. Kilda Saints tonight against West. Or no, it's Saturday night against West Coast.
It could be tonight if you're trying to judge what time it is in Australia. The late, great Gordon Soley would have said, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Great wrestling announcer of Championship Wrestling from Florida. And probably, I mean, one of the more overlooked in terms of the broadcasting industry when it comes to having any kind of recognition for his overall excellence and
Right?
superiority to the others. Yeah.
He
And
reminds me of, oh, damn. Who was the guy, NBC? He did Wimbledon every year. He did NFL.
Dick
Dick Enberg. He had that same
of wrestling announcers. Yeah, you're right.
exactly that same understated approach to the profession that Dick had. Like you know you've Jim Ross, who's become the classic
Yeah.
wrestling announcer these days with the screaming and the emoting, much like Gus Johnson does when he.
Oh,
But Dick Enberg just gave you the facts. Didn't scream and get rowdy about it. You know, might have an oh my, might have been a
yeah, he had the greatest tagline, though, of anybody ever in terms of signing off. So long from the Sunshine State. I used to
there you
love
go.
that, and I always wanted to incorporate that, but it would have been clear that I was pirating somebody
That
else's work.
to me was Gordon Soley, his approach to wrestling. Very low key.
Yeah.
Gave you the facts, didn't get fired up about it. And if you ever want to look at a great YouTube that Defo originally clued me into, it's my favorite. Look for Gordon Soley man wrestles bear. And there's a match of Gordon Soley calling somebody, I don't remember who it was, wrestling a bear. And like Gordon Soley and his
brothers, yeah.
is very nonplussed fashion. Like bears are natural wrestlers. You very often them in the wild see them wrestling.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, well,
And you know, I've told the story many times about this guy. I have him on an interview. Somebody turned me on to him. I had his number, and I call the guy and I say, "Hey, would you mind coming on the show there? And if you could, we're going to try and pull a prank on one of my co-hosts." And he gets very indignant, and he says to me over the phone, "I will not be part of anything that's even remotely of a fraudulent nature." And he slammed the phone. I'm thinking, you're a fucking wrestling announcer. How can you possibly take offense at the notion that we were going to have you pull some kind of a prank? Get out of here. All right, we want to get people turned on a brilliant big board this week that you have already displayed on another program this morning on the Defo show. That's on South Florida Live, and and Bleacher Brothers, and it's kind of the elongated version of it. But if we can do a quick Reader's Digest reprisal of this, I think it's extremely relevant to what we were talking about a couple of days ago on the show when they brought back Pete Rose from the dead and decided they were going to reinstate several players for eligibility to be part of Major League Baseball.
Again, just to give the quick background here, like I was as a kid very neutral on Pete Rose. Pete Rose, I was just young enough that Pete Rose was never like a big star to me. He was just like an old dude who hung around forever, had a weird haircut. That's so when the whole gambling thing and people got really upset and the ban and whatnot, I was like, whatever. And then he did his radio show and it had his restaurant in Boca Raton, Florida. So when I got into radio and then later got in the restaurant industry, I met tons of people who knew Pete Rose and some knew him well. And nobody ever had a nice word to say about him. And so, like, I discovered, oh, Pete Rose is a huge sack of shit. And then I started reading about the case and I read about all the statements he made. Like, oh, like, so he's a compulsive liar.
Yep.
And again, just a scumbag. Like,
he was a little rough, no doubt.
The city of Boca Raton is rife with stories about some 8-year-old going to Pete Rose's restaurant and mom and dad dropping a couple $100 on dinner, and the kid wanted Pete Rose to sign a baseball and it'd be like $25, kid.
If I give it to you for free, I got to do it for everybody.
And yeah, and they had those crooked ass machines, so you had to get 10,000 skee ball tickets to get Pete Rose to sign a hat. Like again, everything. And this is a town where Wilt Chamberlain's was right across the street, and Wilt was not the friendliest guy in the world.
Nope.
But compared to Pete Rose in Boca Raton, Wilt was beloved.
No doubt.
Compared to Pete Rose. So as we've gone through all this, and like there's all these people, mostly old people, who weirdly love him. And like I sort of get it because I assume it's people from Cincinnati. And like when the other highlight of Cincinnati sports is like the Ickey Woods one season, like you're going to hang on to Pete Rose because you just don't have much else to hold on to. And it's like Bob Huggins and Ickey Woods and Pete Rose. So you're going to hang on to Pete Rose like grim death.
Well, he played
but there's people who love him.
He played for another humanitarian, Marge Schott, of course.
Again, another reason to hang on to him because like Marge Schott is probably still top 10 in Cincinnati sports history, personalities. So this week with the big announcement, we did big board in the theme of Pete Rose, and that is the big board of what needs to be reinstated along with Pete Rose.
Only fair to examine some of these other situations. All right, here we go. Number 5.
Number 5, Josh Gordon. Like, come on. If we're softer on gambling than we are, and we clearly are, 20 years ago, the idea that every other commercial was going to be for a gambling app during NFL broadcasts was unthinkable. We're also softer on weed, right? Like, I mean, there's weed stores on every corner in like 35 states.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, you go to some places, like when we were out in Lake Tahoe a few years ago, you couldn't go 3 steps without there being a weed store.
We were in San Francisco and the cops were passing a joint when we were asking for directions to a couple of places during the week of the Super Bowl.
Meanwhile, all Josh Gordon has ever done is smoke weed, and he's suspended for the NFL for life. He's still only 34 years old. He could come back and play. And as I said to you earlier, Defo, like, okay, so we're saying Josh Gordon can't be in the NFL because it would be a bad example for the kids. And then there's like 5 different commercials featuring Snoop Dogg in every NFL game. And don't tell me it's because Snoop Dogg's a rapper, because Snoop Dogg hasn't had a hit song in a couple of decades. Like, no. Snoop Dogg is just, at this point in his career, just a dude who really likes to smoke weed. That's what he's famous for.
He's everywhere, too, Snoop Dogg. I mean, he's an ambassador for the U.S. in the Olympics. He was making what? He was making edibles with Martha Stewart on a show.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you can have Snoop Dogg commercials during the game, you can let Josh Gordon come back and, finish his career in the NFL.
All right. Very fairly untreated, very unfairly treated, I should say. That's number 5. Number 4.
Number 4, in the spirit of Pete Rose, and using Pete Rose as an example, we need to make 70s style pot-bellied dad bod guys sex symbols again. I mean, here's Pete Rose in his famous jockey ad. And by the way, if you're thinking that guy on the left is some wrestler with that onesie he's wearing, nope, that's Steve Carlton wearing a light blue onesie. in Paisley for some reason. I
That's
have no idea what the hell was going on with underwear in the 1970s. But I can tell you this: if this is what jockey and mainstream America was trying to push as sexy, I understand why the feminist movement happened in the 1970s.
no
If
doubt.
my day was waiting for some pot-bellied weirdo in jockey shorts to come home and lay his fat, sweaty body on me, I'd want to go work for 70 cents on the dollar too. Just get me the hell away from this guy. If that was the idea of sexy, if it gets me out of the house, that's good. I'll go get a job.
Well, it looks like they shoved a fungo bat there to enhance Pete Rose's image of being a sex symbol.
I I feel like they did that just to keep people away from looking at his haircut and go, why
It does
why
take
is he wearing a Mo from the Three Stooges haircut? It's 1975. Like, who the
and
hell still has that haircut, Pete?
that outfit on Carlton, he looks like one of those Midwest wrestlers that comes in
Right?
to fight like the world heavyweight champion that you know is going to be in a Japanese sleeper hold 30 seconds into the match. I don't,
Honestly, this may very well be the worst underwear ad in the history of underwear ads, and I am including when I say that, I'm including the time Haynes let Michael Jordan wear a Hitler mustache
yeah.
during a, during a commercial.
All right, that's number 4. Reinstate the old look that hairy, old, fat bodies are sexy again.
Number 3, this is the one people aren't going to like. I mean, this is a guy who's
Yeah,
clearly abominable, but allow me to make the argument, and that is, let's reinstate Donald Sterling because let's be honest, it's 2025. The biggest story in sports has been an old guy who's rich as hell just doing whatever the hell the young woman in his life wants him to do.
yep.
And let's be honest, Donald Sterling, yes, he said some bad things about Magic Johnson. He used some racial slurs. He didn't want his woman hanging around Magic Johnson. I don't blame him for it. And I can tell you, if Bill Belichick's girlfriend starts hanging out with Michael Jordan because they're both in North Carolina, there's a very good chance Bill Belichick's going to start throwing around some racial slurs.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, as much as I love Magic, he had slept with every woman in Los Angeles before it was discovered that he had the HIV virus. So, yeah, Donald
And
Sterling.
let and let's be honest, it's 2025 America. Yes, we're softer on gambling than we've ever been. We're softer on weed than we've ever been. We're softer on racism than we have been in a long time. I mean, we're letting South Africans, white South African farmers, just come on in and flood the country. Like, you could say what Donald Sterling did was bad, and I don't disagree. It was terrible, but he's not taking anybody's land. He's not taking away Magic Johnson's land and blocking his family from voting for 50 years.
Certainly seems like maybe it's a little bit of an oversight that he's being treated so harshly. That's number 3. Number 2.
Number 2, and this one I think is easily the one that needs to happen the most, and that is, let's let Tonya Harding back into figure skating because she's clearly the most entertaining figure skater who has ever lived. And number 1 in all this, if you flash back this, remember how much America loved Nancy Kerrigan? Well, we figured out like 3 months later Nancy Kerrigan sucks. And let's look at Tonya Harding's hits. Margot Robbie got nominated for Best Actress playing Tonya Harding. Like, if you are such an entertaining figure that Margot Robbie could get nominated for an Oscar for playing your life, you are one hell of an entertaining human being. Number 2, she did a sex tape back when, like, doing a sex tape was a process, right? She did a sex tape back when you had to, like, send a check to the sex tape people and they sent you your package 3 weeks later. Like, she was way ahead of her. That wasn't Kim Kardashian. You just had to go on the internet and download it. This was back when getting a sex tape was like a process.
Yeah, and Kerrigan was caught trashing Disney World after he
Right.
accepted a very real
And
fat.
let's be honest here. If you're going to hire someone to, like, do your enemy in, she did it in the most entertaining
Yes.
case. She didn't hire some mafia hitman to, like, cut Nancy Kerrigan's brake line. She didn't hire, somebody to mug Nancy Kerrigan walking down the street. She hired a 350-pound dude who, let's say, might have had some mental issues in terms of IQ level to whack her in the knee with an iron pipe. And has there ever been more entertaining television than Sean Eckhart doing, like, serious news broadcast interviews like, I'm the mastermind? Come on.
He
Like,
could mastermind tying his shoes.
Everything this
The
woman
Lily
did was,
character was great also. I
oh
mean,
yeah.
it was kind of like the character in Casino. That was the girlfriend. Uh,
I honestly, I think he's Kid Rock. Like honestly, I'm not 100% sure that Jeff Galooly 10 years later just didn't reinvent himself as Kid
yeah,
Rock.
yeah, he was like James Woods, the boyfriend.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's a good comp.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like,
Yeah, I'm with you. And skating definitely needs some kind of seamy underside to have any kind of general
right?
appeal to me, much like boxing and horse racing, my two favorite sports. And without Dick Button going crazy over a triple sow cow, it really has lost a lot of its luster and the focus on it as well. All right, so Tonya Harding, number two, to be reinstated. And that's an honestly strong case that you make there. So number one would be.
Tonya Harding is the most entertaining person involved in this, but in terms of value added to the sports consumer, I think this is the strongest one in terms of stuff I personally would want to watch.
Yes.
Let's reinstate Danny Almonte to Little League Baseball. Let's let 38-year-old Danny Almonte brush back 12-year-olds in Williamsport at the Little League World Series. I would pay ESPN. ESPN's starting a new streaming service for like $30 a month. I'm not saying I would order it full time, but for the month where the Little League World Series is, I would probably pay the $30 as long as I got to see Danny Almonte buzz a bunch of 12-year-olds.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, some kid's 4'2" and 65 pounds. A 38-year-old Almonte throws a fastball right at his chin,
Right.
like it was Bob Gibson. And all we wanted to do was get to the point before he got knocked down to find out that his favorite drink was chocolate milk. So birth certificates should be checked.
I'm saying don't check him. Let's let Danny. I mean, because let's be honest, like half those kids are like 14 anyway. Like
Yeah,
there's always some kid who's like 6'2" and 210
yeah.
randomly playing. Like, yeah, I want to see 38-year-old Danny Almonte with a parliament hanging out of his mouth, throwing sliders at kids from Tulsa and Portland. I think it would be great.
It's always amazing. You see a guy that looks like Rowdy Tellez, and you're led to believe that he's 10 and a half. Has a shoe size bigger than Bob Lanier. It's amazing. All right, Professor, those are all valid. I mean, if Pete Rose could rise from the grave to be reinstated into Major League Baseball amidst much fanfare now, there seems to be tremendous excitement about this, then certainly all of these people are worthy of reconsideration in terms of their status in
100%.
sports.
Let's make Little League Baseball great again with Danny Almonte.
All right, good luck with all your wagers over the weekend, and we're hoping maybe we're going to see the Panthers emerge and take on Carolina for the Eastern Conference Championship. Very strong chance of a rematch, run it back of last year's Stanley Cup final, as Edmonton already into the final round in the Western Conference and likely to face the Dallas Stars, who still hold a 3-2 advantage over the Peg and have a home game coming up. And Florida Panthers look to be on a roll. So we'll see if they can wrap things up tonight. Thanks so much, Professor. Always a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks so much for being with us on this Degenerate Friday.
You have a great one, Defo.
All right, the Professor, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of fun. Who should be reinstated? If Pete Rose can get back into baseball, I think the Professor makes a very valid case for all of the five representations that he made here on the show. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the Preakness. I have to root for the Chalk because of our new relationship with their Umberto Rispoli. Outstanding young man and jockey. And once again, you can catch that preview if you'd like on Bleacher Brothers. And it's Conversations with Jeff DeForest featuring Umberto Rispoli and the great Larry Colmus, who is calling a race on NBC. Hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll see you again on Monday, the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.